All right, my phone says that it's happened. It is 12:15. So we will call to order the, what day is today? January 18th? Yes. 2019 meeting of the AQMD Environmental Justice Advisory Group. And I'd like to start off by thanking everyone for being here. It was a great turnout. And in terms of opening remarks, I don't see Evelyn here, but I want to let you guys know something. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. We have a new Cal EPA secretary, Jared Blumenfeld. He used to be the administrator of EPA Region 9 a few years back. And I met him when he was appointed to be the Region 9 administrator and got to know him and kept in touch with him. And he started a podcast called Podship Earth. And I started listening to the podcast, and I got in touch with him. I said, you know, you should come down and take a look at the ports, and I could set up some things for you, and you could talk to some folks and do a podcast on it. And he was very excited about that. And he said, okay, let's do that. So in December, I guess it was, beginning of December, we got together and did that. And among other things, I mean, we talked to a driver who drives a alternative fuel heavy duty truck at the ports. Some of the labor representatives, the Teamsters, Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy. And then I took them over to the Port of Long Beach, where they have the cleanest port terminal in the world, the Long Beach Container Terminal. And he talked to the president of the terminal. And then I took him to meet Evelyn, our very Evelyn Knight, who's a member of this advisory group. And oh my goodness, Evelyn just regaled him with story after story after story after story. And we got done. He said, I have to do a whole separate podcast on Evelyn alone. So she is part, and I am part of the Goods Movement podcast that he did that was released right around the end of the year, Christmas or something. But then this last Sunday, he released a Martin Luther King podcast. Announced that he had been appointed Cal EPA secretary, and he's no longer taking advertisements for his podcast. He's going to do the podcast every 2 weeks instead of every week. But he also did a show that featured Evelyn almost exclusively and talking about Martin Luther King because of Evelyn's experience of coming from Alabama and marching with Dr. King. So I'm going to highly recommend that you download the podcast, Podship Earth, probably both of them. To hear from Evelyn and a little bit from me, but this week's is all Evelyn, just about. Really interesting, and it's great. Her story is amazing. So I'm sorry that she's not here today, but highly recommend you listen to Jared Blumenfeld's podcast, Podship Earth. So let's go around the room and just say our names. We have at least one new member here today. So why don't you say your name and affiliation? Well, he knows me. I'm Joe Liu. I'm the governor's appointee to the South Coast AQMD Governing Board. And we'll go this way, Nancy.
Nancy Feldman from Legal.
Anna Yu from the Legislative Public Affairs and Media Department.
Brandy Keith, also from Legislative Public Affairs and Media.
Retta Alexander, Valley Interfaith Council, San Fernando Valley.
Mary Figueroa, Riverside, Inland Empire.
Larry Beeson, Loma Linda University School of Public Health.
David McNeil, Baldwin Hills Conservancy.
Rafael Yanez, community member, East LA.
Danny Morales, Riverside. It's Paul Cho, Dry Cleaners Association.
Hi, Humberto Lugo from the Coachella Valley, the Environmental Justice Task Force, and Ivan Air. Thank you.
Afif El Hassan, Orange County American Lung Association.
Carrie Doyle Pace in LA.
Monique Hernandez, Cal State LA.
Suzanne Bilodeau, Orange County.
Denise Peralta Gailey with the Legislative Public Affairs and Media Department.
Alicia Rodriguez, also with the Legislative Public Affairs and Media Department.
Good afternoon. This is Joe K. Gosh from Planning and Rules.
Hi, I'm Lourdes Cordova Martinez, Technology Advancement Office.
Ron Moskowitz from Information Management.
Fabian Wesson from Legislative Public Affairs and Media, and I'd like to extend a welcome to our new Public Affairs Manager, Denise Scaly.
First week, right? First week. So Denise is new, and okay if I call you Beto? Because I've always been calling you Beto. And Beto and his organization have done amazing things in Coachella and Imperial, Calexico, and other places with environmental justice issues, and we've been working together for many, many years trying to make sure that they address the unique concerns of those communities. So thank you for coming out and the long drive and joining us here at the EJ Advisory Group. If there are no other comments or issues on agenda item number 1, we will go to the minutes under agenda item number 2. Do we have any corrections or comments or anything that in terms of the minutes so that we can approve them? And if there's no public comment, which I'm assuming not, then we could take a motion to approve. So moved. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any objection? And we don't have anyone on the line, so we don't have to do a roll call, so we'll consider those approved. Thank you. And then we have some follow-up items from the last meeting, and Fabian will go through them for us on item 3.
Yeah, that's correct. Action item number 1, staff was to work with planning, rural development, and area sources on providing information to Ms. Alexander about proposed Rule 1410. The update is staff did contact Michael Kraus from Planning and Rules Manager to give an update to Ms. Alexander. We are now currently working on coordinating that meeting. You have an update, Retta? Have they contacted you? Everything's...
Why don't you use the mic?
Yes.
Because we have to do minutes and
it's
go
recorded.
back to the recording.
Mm-hmm. So
I haven't talked to them, but I did get information from Alicia that there will be a working group meeting, and I'll get some information from that and then see where that goes.
I believe there's also an update scheduled for our next board meeting on February
I think it
1st,
is.
2nd, or whatever it is. Is
February
it
1st. It's
February
the 1st.
1st. The day before Groundhog's Day. So that actually might be quite a long meeting because it's a very controversial issue. And if, just to remind people, 1410 is about the proposal to deal with the issue of modified hydrofluoric acid at the 2 refineries that we have here in the South Coast SCAQMD. There's a lot of interest and a lot of issues.
And I was inquiring about it because of 2 people from the community that were at the conference this past year and raised some serious concerns.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. No, your mic's off.
Action item number 2 and 3, staff was to send out to the membership information on the upcoming facility-based mobile source measures meeting. Staff was to send EJAG the link to the facility-based mobile source measures webpage with information on where to find the presentations and future meetings. The update was an email was sent out on November the 6th, 18, to the membership with the link to the facility-based mobile source measures webpage containing the meeting information. Attached to the email was a copy of the presentation from the October 24th working group. The next working group meeting is in March, the date to be determined. If you visit our website, you can sign up for the newsletter to get notified of the scheduled meetings. Action item number 4, staff to give a presentation to EJAG on the electric lawn and garden equipment program. It's item number 5 today on the agenda. Action item number 5, staff to give regular AB 617 timeline updates to EJAG. Dr. Joe K. Gosh is here today to present on AB 617. Action item number 6, staff to connect Ms. Mary Figueroa to planning, rural development, and area sources regarding the indirect source rules in Riverside. Staff connected Ms. Figueroa to Ian McMillan, the planning and rules manager, regarding the IDRS. Action item number 7, staff to send a poll to EJAG regarding whether the next meeting to be held on January the 18th or January the 25th. Obviously, the poll resulted in January the 18th. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from committee members on this item? Any members of the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, which is AB 617 updates from Dr. Gosh.
Great, thank you. It's great to be here this afternoon. I'm just presenting a very brief update. I don't have any slides. I think the last time I presented here, we were just getting started with our community steering committees, and I believe the steering committee meetings were probably going into their first meeting at around that time. I do want to mention that there are a couple members here who are actually part of the steering committees. I see one here, Raphael, and there's also Jill Johnston, who's not here today, but she's part of one of our other steering committees as well. So I do definitely appreciate all your help and your participation. So at this point, we've convened steering committees for all 3 of the communities, and those 3 communities are Wilmington, Carson, West Long Beach, San Bernardino, and Muscoy, and finally East LA, Boyle Heights, and West Commerce. So those are the 3 communities that were approved for year 1 implementation by the California Air Resources Board. At this time, again, we convened steering committees of roughly 30 to 35 members each. Very diverse groups, includes folks from government agencies, for example, including land use agencies, public health agencies, also tried to engage other not agencies, but so much, but like universities and hospitals that serve those local areas. We have a couple representatives from local elected officials, offices that are also serving on some of our steering committees. We have folks from community organizations that have been active in those communities, from businesses or local business organizations, and also labor unions as well. And then finally, we have many people who are active residents, so people who specifically live in those communities who are serving on our steering committee. At this time, 2 of our community steering committees have met twice. So those are the ones, the Ports Area Community and the one in San Bernardino, Muscoy. Last night was actually our second steering committee meeting. And then next week we will have meeting number 2 for our East LA community to continue our discussion. So far, we've given some background on AB 617, talked a little bit about the community selection process, talked about community boundaries, also solicited information about air quality concerns from the committee members, but also from members of the public who are attending the meeting. So what we've done is we've digitized all those concerns and presented them back to the committees at the second meeting. And then we're going to have a discussion about that, and we're going to finally, at the next meeting next month, we'll be moving into prioritizing what air quality issues we can address through AB 617, and then starting to discuss some of the strategies, including air monitoring strategies, which we did talk about at meeting number 2, or will talk about next week. You'll hear about it, about how air monitoring or emission reduction strategies can help address those priority air pollution concerns. So that is the extent of my update. Are there any questions?
Questions or comments from any committee members? No? I think, Joe K., I would also just remind you that when we talked about this last time, Dr. Johnston said, we need to have some air quality 101 information for steering committee members, and I think that's probably still a good idea. I don't know. I think there actually was a proposal to develop something like that, either at the governing board level or one of the committee levels meetings recently that I think Public Affairs has proposed to do. So I agree and kind of forget at times that we have to have air quality 101 information to share with people. And probably update it fairly regularly. The other issue I've been thinking about with 617 is I think it'd be really helpful to have a conversation with the steering committees about what they think and what we think success might look like, a year out, 5 years out, 10 years out. Because are you supposed to be someplace?
Supposed to drink water.
Oh, you're supposed to drink water. You are drinking water. That's perfect. But if we don't start talking now about what success looks like, I think we might end up at the end of this with either unmet expectations or frustration or failure to recognize some of the things we do accomplish. So I would really encourage you to think about what success actually looks like, because AB 617 is this big, complicated thing and new and process and attempt to try to really address some environmental justice issues in our most impacted communities. And it's not real clear to anyone, I think, exactly what we're going to end up with in the end. Carrie, go ahead.
Thank you. I think Dr. Liu, you were reading my mind. I was thinking exactly the same thing. What does success look like? If this effort is going to be successful, then what are the results, right? But I was curious in the first meeting. Am I to understand that there were a number of issues identified, and then in the next meeting you're going to prioritize them?
Right. So the first meeting, it was I would kind of characterize it a little bit like a brainstorming session. So for people to identify, their concerns, we had these big maps put up on tables or on the walls, and we put the specific issues on specific points on the map and wrote them down, and then the staff basically took all that information, digitized it, and presented it on a map, and then we're starting to categorize them. So for example, mobile source concerns, stationary source concerns, and then what type of stationary concerns? Was it a refinery? Was it an auto body shop? Was it a waste treatment plant? So and then from that point, we can also dive into our technical data, where we can characterize the types of emissions that we are getting from those specific facilities or from those specific types of sources. So yes, we are moving into prioritization, probably starting in meeting number 3, and just as a reminder of the timeline, we need to be bringing this to our board by September. So bringing the plans to our board by September, we need to begin air monitoring, community air monitoring, by July 1st. So these are some really tight timelines, and especially when we start considering equipment purchases and obviously having to go through the committee and board process as well for many of these actions.
Out of the 3 areas, did you see similarities?
You mean similarities in terms of what types of concerns people raised?
Yeah, right.
There were certainly some similarities, and we certainly know that with each of these being very very highly impacted communities, we have a pretty good understanding for some of the major concerns even going into this process. So certainly a lot of concerns related to the goods movement, so the ports, the trucks, the freeways, and the rail. So certainly that was a big portion of the concern. More pertaining to our Inland Empire community, certainly a lot of concerns around kind of new truck traffic related to warehousing. So I would say that is probably a more unique concern there. And then refinery issues pertinent to the ports area community. So again, each community definitely has its own set of concerns, but for our region, we certainly have a pretty good understanding that that the mobile sources are a pretty dominant concern.
Is it allowable for this group to take a look at those notes?
Yes, so our staff have been frantically trying to post everything on our website as quickly as we can. We are working a lot of overtime, and I know Fabi and I need to have a conversation about that.
Is everybody being paid?
Well, I don't, but the staff do.
We were smart enough to put her on salary. But I think the map is the website link, right?
Yeah, so we have a number of interactive maps. We actually have a different interactive map for each community. So you can go on those maps and explore. We put the maps with the specifically the community identified air quality concerns, and again categorize them as mobile source, stationary source, and also sensitive receptor. So sensitive receptor would include schools and parks and residential areas, hospitals, things like that. And then if you click on the dot, you can get a little bit more information about what kind of mobile source concern. Was it the rail? Was it trucks? Was it just traffic in general? That sort of thing.
So as a action item, we can circulate the 617 website and the maps websites, right, with members. Thank you. Frantically making notes, so we'll do that. David, did you still have a comment?
Well, I was just going to ask about the community surveying. You did some surveying, correct, for this event?
So we did we gathered the air quality concerns. So is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and the method. I'm curious. People using the cell phone. I don't think they call it an EV survey or an electronic survey, where you can text information and questions and answers. And I was wondering, I don't know if the AQMD.
It was a little more low tech, like big map and yellow stickies.
Okay, yeah, well, that's fine. That's fine. I was just curious as to someone using that and whether somebody deployed that, because it's a discussion about deploying it in the SNAPS program.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So I mean, I've seen apps like that, and I certainly know that it can be done. I think for us, it was really helpful to have that in-person conversation to be able to better understand the specific concerns. It's like it's really hard for us to follow up, when we get a comment like, the air quality is bad, the air quality is horrible. It's like, okay, well, let's get a little bit more specific about this, right? So it's like it really helps to have that back and forth conversation. So.
Any other questions or comments on 617 update? Okay, thank you. Dr. Gosh, appreciate it. Oh, wait, any members of the public? Feel free to redress your government for grievances. Okay, having none, then we get to the electric leaf blower incentive programs, and Lourdes Cordova-Martinez will provide us an update on that.
Hi, good afternoon. The presentation that I'm going to give this afternoon is a little bit more detailed than the leaf blower exchange exclusively. So this group, I think, has received a presentation on the leaf blower exchange in the past. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more about a new program that we're going to be unveiling later this month. It's a commercial electric lawn and garden equipment and exchange program. So it's going to include a variety of equipment. Just as background, my name is Lourdes Cordova-Martinez. I'm a Senior Public Affairs Manager in the Technology Advancement Office. And within our program area, we have incentives, clean fuels, and also programs like the Commercial Lawn and Garden Program and also the Residential Rebate Program. I did bring some flyers, so you please feel free to take some information. And at the end, if you have any questions, please forward them to Alicia, who can then I can forward some information to her directly. So thank you for the opportunity to provide an update today on these two programs. Okay, so as background, the South Coast AQMD initiated a commercial leaf blower exchange program in 2006. And at that time, there were no battery electric models available, but what we were doing is encouraging commercial landscapers, gardeners, and others to switch their older, more polluting equipment for newer, more efficient models. And so this was a program where they could bring in a working gasoline-powered leaf blower and exchange it for a new one at a very much discounted price. And it was a very popular program. We exchanged over 12,000 leaf blowers. This was done at point of sale. So a landscaper would go to a dealer location. They would bring their old equipment. It's scrapped, and then in turn they would purchase the new equipment. In 2016, we introduced battery electric leaf blowers to the program. The consumers or the end users were a little skeptical because this was kind of a brand new piece of equipment. So they were a little tentative at first. In 2017, we only offered battery electric leaf blowers. So this was again an opportunity to move the industry more towards zero emission technology. And in 2018, 2017, we received a targeted airshed grant from EPA, which allowed us to expand it to an overall commercial electric lawn and garden program, which includes more than just leaf blowers. So as background, the State Air Resources Board is very interested in the category of small off-road engines, which lawnmowers and leaf blowers fall under. It's a huge, huge inventory with over 16 million pieces of equipment in the state, both residential and commercial. And so this program is going to help address reduce emission exposure to the worker, also pathways to zero emission equipment. So it's an interesting partnership where South Coast is actually able to provide the incentive programs, and the State Air Resources Board is having, and I'll provide a little bit more information later, a zero emission equipment roadshow. And there are flyers on the table, so if cities, communities, schools would like the State Air Resources Board to bring the equipment on site, they'll demonstrate it, they'll loan it, they'll allow the organization to keep it for a few weeks, a month, to kind of see if the end user is comfortable with the technology. And hopefully that helps answer some questions about durability, efficiencies, performance. And that's all very important. So for our program, we have a $2.4 million EPA airshed grant, and also South Coast included some funding from our Air Quality Investment Program. And again, this is only for battery electric equipment. No gasoline equipment is eligible for the program. We have 6 manufacturers. I have one brochure that I'm happy to circulate. After this, we're actually going to launch our program on January 29th. Be happy to provide you all with multiple copies of the brochures. Everything's going to be online. All of our materials will be translated into English and Spanish and other languages as needed. But this is just an outline of the equipment. So we have lawnmowers, riding mowers, robotic lawnmowers, kind of like the vacuum cleaners that you use at home. Some robotic lawnmowers that you input the dimensions or the parameters of where the machine needs to go, and you set it down and it mows a certain space. So this technology is really useful for places where maybe you have sensitive receptors, like a preschool or senior center or a health facility, or somewhere where you just want to have the lawn look nice and you don't necessarily want a whole lot of activity associated with that. We also have chainsaws, trimmers, edgers, all sorts of equipment that's going to be available as part of this program. These are the 6 manufacturers, and there's a picture of the robotic lawnmower. This was done through a competitive process. The big green mower is a riding mower. It's a huge piece of equipment. It's all battery electric. And then you have the more traditional handheld mowers, trimmers, edgers that are available from these 6 manufacturers. So again, we estimate there'll be approximately 5,600 pieces of equipment will be eligible based on the funding that we have for the program. Again, a piece of equipment, a gas piece of equipment must be scrapped in order to participate in the program. And eligible participants are commercial landscapers, gardeners, local governments, schools, cities, colleges, and nonprofits. Those are the 6 eligible communities or organizations. Now, the manufacturers have dealer locations throughout our 4 counties. That's where the participants will need to go to purchase the equipment. On our website, we'll have a list of all the locations. We have close to 80 dealer locations throughout the 4 counties, everywhere from Santa Clarita to Palm Springs, Palm Desert, the Coachella Valley. And also the equipment must be scrapped through a certified dealer. And AQMD is also partnering with CARB, who's going to conduct a future survey on the participants to try to quantify the emission reductions based on what type of equipment was scrapped, what type of equipment was purchased, and also what they thought about the equipment. You know, are they happy with the equipment performance, et cetera. As an example, as part of this program, if you had a steel leaf blower with a backpack charger, the discounted price is $1,080. The participant would pay $540, and South Coast incentive is $540. So that's a really nice nice pricing point for somebody who wants to maybe just venture into this zero technology. Again, we are very actively working on outreach. We're going to have a brochure, fact sheets in English and Spanish, updated website. We're going to have press release. Each of the manufacturers is going to conduct also extensive outreach on their product lines. We have a call center here at the district where we'll be answering calls from the public. We have a dedicated email address. So we feel comfortable that we have a lot of experience in this area, and we look forward to unveiling this first of its kind program. We think it's the first in the nation for commercial, as comprehensive a list of commercial equipment that we have. I think I just have a couple more slides and then we can take questions on both programs. So the residential lawnmower program, we started a lawnmower exchange program in 2002. At the time, people used to line up. It was first come, first serve. It was very chaotic. Then we went over to a sign-up type of program where you would reserve a spot. Over the 12-year program, we exchanged 50,000 lawnmowers for residential use. In 2015, we had a lot of issues dealing with water conservation, and so we saw the numbers really dramatically decrease. We decided that since the electric lawnmowers there were quite a few models out on the market, many different price points, we decided to make this a year-round rebate program where a consumer can go and purchase an electric lawnmower at any time, at any place. They pay whatever they want to pay, and the rebate is based on the purchase price. So it's $150, $200, or $250, depending on how much you paid. And we have some flyers out on the table. They do have to scrap a gasoline mower in order to receive the rebate, and we have scrapping facilities throughout the 4 counties, and it's been pretty successful. Over the past 2 years, we have scrapped over 800 lawnmowers as part of this year-round program, and so people have been very happy, $184,000 in rebates. And so we continue with this program, and it's worked well for the consumer because they don't have to do this at a specific time during the year, and also they can buy any model, any brand that they would like. And again, this is just some information on resources. Our website is going to be updated with this information when we launch on January 29th. That number is for our call center, but I'm happy to also have you call me directly or email me. And then there's the contact information for the Air Resources Board Zero Emission Equipment Roadshow. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. And I apologize if I went really fast.
Okay, I have Dr. Al-Hassan, and then David, and then Retta, and then Mary.
Aside from the rebate for the lawnmowers, do we have any numbers to give the consumer regarding savings in terms of not having to buy gas, just general overall savings, wear and tear, no need for oil?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of resource information on our website. So typically, we're interested in the air quality benefits of zero emission technology, but obviously the convenience of not having to gas up your mower. They're easy to use. Sometimes they fold over. They're easy to store. People who don't have a lot of strength can use them, so you can have a child mow. You know, we have a lot of folks who just really like the availability of just a range of equipment. You can have something that's very compact to a huge mower. So definitely, we also encourage, it's the air quality, but also no gas, no mess, no hassle.
I was just curious if there are any specific numbers, because the consumer responds really well to you'll save this much in gas a year, and
Well, when we first we have always highlighted the cost savings for the equipment. You know, for the residential person who mows once or twice a month, I don't really know how much they'd be saving on gasoline, but we definitely have resource information on the website.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. I mean, one of the great benefits of residents is they don't have to have a can of gas sitting at their house all the time.
Exactly.
I think I had David, then Retta, and then Mary, and then Dr. Hernandez, and then Danny.
Thank you, Dr. Lou. You're doing a good job keeping track of this.
Trying.
We're trying to confuse you. We're going to put things up and down.
Yeah, yeah. That's,
The other benefit is the noise.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an air benefit, but noise
Yes.
pollution in the morning. And I had a silent mower, and it's great. So it picks up on the financial aspect. Is the price point? I don't even know what the price point of a leaf blower or a lawnmower is these days, but it's kind of like my electric car. There's this tipping point where, okay, now it makes sense. Are we there yet with these manufacturers?
Are you talking about the commercial equipment or the residential?
Well, let's say I went back to my office and said, Wateridge, Vasquez Landscaping, you should consider this program. And is he going to say, well, that equipment costs twice as much, even with the rebates, I'm not winning, to scrap all my old equipment. I'm just wondering where we are with the manufacturers, and certainly incentivizing the end users one thing, but also incentivize the manufacturer to take those things off the shelves that are using gas.
That's a really good question, and I actually do have the data, and I apologize I didn't bring it with me, but the State Air Resources Board has done a comparison and analysis on how many years in order for it to become kind of exactly, so if you're getting something that's going to be more expensive, because it is more expensive, but over the years, the performance is at par or above par. You don't need the gasoline. The maintenance is less because you don't have to, tune up, and also the benefit to the worker. And also there are quite a few cities in our region who have banned the use of gas leaf blowers. And so a gardener, landscaper cannot use a gasoline leaf blower as part of their work in that city. But if they had an electric leaf blower, they could use it. So there's a lot of those types of benefits, but I'm happy to provide the information on, if a business person or a company needs to invest in the technology, how many years would they need to have it in order for it to have a return on their investment? And I'm trying to recall, it was like 4 or 5 years. And what we've seen is there are some large commercial landscapers that are really excited to see this opportunity because they're going to take that initial investment, and they're going to. It's an investment. If I have a crew of 40 different companies and different teams working, and I say 4 of those teams are going to be all electric, I'm going to see how it goes and see how they like the equipment. Are they able to stay on time? Are they able to do all the things that they need to do with that equipment? So it's a good starting point for a lot of industries.
And I guess the only thing, if there's a list of folks or companies that have already done this and taken that leap, the pioneers, it might be good to point to those people and say, look, they're already doing it,
Right.
Call them and talk to them.
We work with an organization called AGSA, American Green Zone Alliance, and it's separate from the AQMD, but they work closely with cities like City of South Pasadena, City of Ojai, where they've gone all electric. And so they've been able to kind of champion the use of that type of equipment. Of course, these are smaller cities, but if you are able to say what in a certain application, so you're going to focus on schoolyards, or you were going to focus on smaller parks, maybe you have a facility that's way too big and it would take too much time, as an example, maybe to use an electric mower or something. But there's definite opportunities to demonstrate. You're welcome.
Great. Greta, go ahead.
So, do you take the Roadshow to a single site, for example?
Yeah, that's part of the California Air Resources Board's program. But the way it was explained to me is they will take, for example, you contact Dorothy, send an email of interest, and then they would schedule a visit. And they have a trailer that has all of different types of equipment, different brands, and they would demonstrate the equipment if that's what you wanted, or if you wanted to have it loaned, they would loan the equipment for a certain period of time. And then in return, they would ask for some feedback. How did it perform? What did you use it for? Would you recommend this?
Yeah, I live right behind Valley Presbyterian Hospital, and I think they're a nonprofit. But I was mowing my lawn with my electric battery operated thing, and I think a supervisor came across the street and expressed some interest, but kind of dismissed it because I have a small one. But he was interested. So it would be great, because I use gasoline blowers and mowers, and it's really bad.
Definitely. So I would contact Dorothy, whose email's up here as well, and let them know that there's an interest, if the hospital is interested in having them come out.
I'll take
definitely.
it over there and talk to them about it, yeah.
Or if their maintenance crew is interested in participating in our program, they're welcome to do that as well.
Right, you
Our-
said
our
you brought
commercial
some
lawn
flyers,
garden.
right?
Yes, there's some flyers on the table.
Take a
It's
flyer.
the lawnmower exchange. I'm sorry, the commercial lawn and garden program.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of information.
No, it's great.
Apologize.
A lot of interest here. Okay, I think, Mary, you were next.
Yes, thank you. So, in a little bit of a different vein, back in 2006, that we had the leaf blower exchange program. Was there an indication of data being collected as to who was basically benefiting from the rebates? I mean, can we basically indicate where most of the rebates were coming from in Southern California?
I think I may know what you're speaking about. Were you talking about the San Bernardino Clean Communities Plan?
Well, this
when
is
they
what
did targeted outreach?
Let me put it a different way then. So I'm listening to this and I'm thinking what a great program it is, especially for a lot of the people that are out there. And in 2006, I think we were in a different mindset. And right now, what I'm trying to figure out is, given the current national climate that has now permeated throughout the whole entire community, a lot of the individuals that do a lot of this type of work on the side, they're not part of a big conglomeration or anything, would be fearful of coming forward, because right about now, most of those individuals are thinking that anything associated with anything that looks like a formal agency or a government, the only reason you're doing it is to collect information on where they live. And the minute that they go down and do something, then they're going to be identified. And so they won't end up, going forward. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of programs out there right now that they're not taking advantage of because of that fear. A lot of it related to health issues, a lot of, health benefit type stuff. But I would see this in the same vein. I would see this in the same way that a lot of the undocumented individuals, and unfortunately the majority of them are Latinos, that do a lot of the lawns and landscaping and everything, either for us individually or as a landscaping company. But the company may be owned by somebody who's a white male, but the ones that are out on the streets or out on the roadways doing the work are not. So what I'm trying to say is, you indicated earlier, you made a statement about the fact that you guys are pretty good at doing the outreach. But what is it that you're going to be doing in order to address that particular issue?
Okay, thank you for the question. We actually, I think, have addressed it over the years. So in the past, with our leaf blower exchange program, a majority of our participants were the small 1 and 2 owner operators. And many of them were from our Latino communities. We do not collect, we collect information in the sense that they're submitting an application. But we are not doing anything with that information other than just keeping it because we need to be able to reference, as an example, when we do analysis on the program, we determine where the equipment was scrapped, where it was purchased. One thing that I failed to mention, and I apologize, is that the US EPA Airshed grant, we are going to be targeting environmental justice communities. So the whole basin is eligible to participate in the program as long as they reside within our 4 counties, but we will be focusing our outreach in environmental justice areas. And so our targeted outreach is going to be to the small owner operators, people who live and work in impacted areas, communities that are designated environmental justice or disadvantaged. So when we look at the funding, each of the vendors has a certain amount of money that they've been allocated. So it's not a huge pot that everyone's drawing from. Each there's a contract with each of the manufacturers because they have different equipment and they have different price points. So as an example, Mean Green that has the big riding mowers, those mowers cost $20,000. And so those big riding mowers are going to be purchased by cities, large organizations, colleges, places that can use that type of equipment. And so when we're collecting data, that's going to help us. We have, I think, done a good job over the last 10 years in creating a relationship with the small owner operators. We have done a lot of handholding in the sense that we are government, but they have a sense of that we're not new to this type of program. So we have a really good database of contact information, and we have organizations that have come back every year to buy equipment from us. So initially it was gas blowers, and then it was electric, and now it's a variety of electric equipment. So I understand your concern, but we, I think, have done a lot of work to try to come, and we are very sincere in our approach that we want to help this segment of our industry transition to zero emission because it's going to be better for them. It's going to be also, it's going to save them money on gasoline. And down the road, there's a possibility that the State Air Resources Board will move towards moving the industry to zero emission.
So Lourdes, I think the issue obviously is that one, that we don't collect or ask for immigration status or residency, identification or anything like that, obviously. But the issue is, are there things that we do proactively to let people know it's safe to interact with the agency on this incentive program so they can take advantage of it, is kind of the question. And I think the other thing is obviously if we're asked, we can explain that we don't collect that information and we don't pass that information along to anybody. But I guess the question is, and it's obviously a sensitive issue, but is there a way for us to provide some assurances to those community members or those people who may not normally come forward or interact with any government agency because of a fear of their immigration status?
The other thing is that the industry group is already familiar. In other words, they're going to be going to their local lawnmower service center, and that center is going to be providing this equipment. Many of them provide different types of equipment, so that one place will be selling 4 or 5 different brands. So it's not a new place for them. They know the people that are servicing the lawnmowers where they buy their their equipment. So it's not like they have to come to the AQMD to get and they're not going to be signing something to get a check. The discount is taken at the point of purchase. So there's not any paperwork in the sense that we're going to send you a check or you need to come and pick something up. It's done at the point of sale.
Which would be the same information they would provide just to purchase the equipment in the first place.
Or who and again, you can buy multiple pieces of equipment and you can come back. If you bought something today and 6 months later you wanted to buy something else, you can. It's not like you can only buy once or you can only buy one piece of equipment. But we definitely, I appreciate the comment, and like I said, we've over the years have worked very closely with the small owner operators and reached out to them. And there's also an organization of Latino gardeners that we worked very closely with. So information will get out there.
Well, thanks for.
And I thank you, and Dr. Liu, thank you for clarifying. That's why you're chairing this group, okay? Because you're better at indicating what I was
you raised
thinking.
a really good issue.
So maybe if I could make one last maybe recommendation or comment in the light of what I'm trying to hope will happen, maybe one of the methods that needs to be looked at is doing some outreach via talk radio, because I have to tell you, our community has not advanced past listening to radio stations. So we still listen to radio stations in the mornings loyally in some cases. Spanish language would probably more than be happy to host, a segment to explain that this is available. And I would hazard to guess that probably Univision would probably also do the same thing, partly because they do take on that struggle of the Latino population. So I think those two, especially the radio station ones, because they're always listening to it.
It's
in the
a
morning.
great recommendation.
Yeah,
It gives
thank
me an
you.
opportunity to share. I never independently fact check this, but a tidbit of trivial but informative information. Do you know what the most popular Spanish language radio is? It's actually Pandora. I had no idea, and I would bet. And I think I've told someone this before because when I learned it, I had to tell everybody I had a conversation with about it. But I would bet that advertising on Pandora Spanish language radio is really inexpensive. And we could probably get a great deal and reach a huge segment of the population doing that. And I'm sure we could get earned, media too coverage at Univision and others who actually are very enthusiastic about environmental issues, I've found historically. So thanks, Mary. That's really helpful. Great recommendations. Okay, the list keeps growing. Dr. Hernandez, Danny, and Dr. El Hassan came back again, and then Carrie.
Thank you, Lourdes, for that
And now Rafi.
presentation. That was really great. Actually, Mary, you brought up many of my concerns, which were about the small business owner. How do we reach them? These road shows, do they typically show up there? Maybe not. So you already kind of addressed those concerns. I'm curious as to, at this current moment, what are your particular outreach strategies for the small business owner?
Okay, so initially we are going to be sending out a press release when we unveil the program. The good thing about this program is that it's not time specific. It doesn't start and end at a specific time. It's going to be for 2 years. We have enough money to get us, we think, through 2 years. And so we're going to be coming back to that audience because they're very familiar with us. We've been doing the leaf blower exchange for 12 years, and they were waiting. They're like, when's the leaf blower coming? When's the leaf blower coming? And we said, oh, we have something better. We're doing more equipment, not just leaf blowers. So they're waiting for this information. Not to say that there won't be new groups that we can reach out to. As a matter of fact, one of my colleagues, Baskin Yardemian, is here in the audience. We have been invited to a landscaping conference or roadshow in Ontario on February. So again, we'll be there with all of our materials. We're also looking at potentially having a couple of equipment showcases. We could have them in the community. We could have them here where we invite the vendors and they come out and they bring all their equipment, and people and companies and organizations can come in and check it out. So we have a pretty comprehensive list of contacts throughout the 4 counties. We'll be working with our legislative and public affairs outreach team to reach out to the schools, the cities, the counties, the nonprofits, to let them know about the program, and also to encourage them to, if they haven't tried battery electric equipment, to, maybe start off with one piece of equipment like a leaf blower or a trimmer, and then hopefully move on to encourage their commercial landscapers to, take advantage of the program.
That's wonderful. It sounds like you have a lot in place. I think the radio idea is also
it's
a
a great
fantastic
idea.
one.
It's a great idea.
I would also suggest to encourage residential, property owners, renters to spread the word to their own landscapers and gardeners. That since we're concerned about that too in our communities, sometimes it's a word of mouth kind
Very
of
much so.
thing.
Word of mouth.
So if you can also access that through the residents, say, tell your landscaper this is available to them. I think that might be a good option
And
as well.
one of the things that we're going to be doing also is we've reached out to the cities for the residential lawnmower program, but we're also going to encourage them to provide information through the cities, because for some folks, even the smaller landscapers, they do have to get sometimes permits to work within the cities, and so they already have a list of landscapers within their respective cities. So you're welcome.
Oh, great. Okay, Danny, you've been very patient. We finally made it to you.
You mentioned that you have a database. I was wondering on the commercial leaf blower exchange program. You had 12,000 exchanged, but do we have an idea the areas where they were exchanged? Because I'm concerned if in the San Bernardino Riverside area, whether they are responding to that. And also, in addition, is this going to be offered in the future for residential customers or?
Okay, two quick questions. So for, in the county of San Bernardino, I circulated one brochure. I apologize, just that it hasn't been printed yet and it says draft on it. We have the dealer locations throughout the 4 counties. So there is an opportunity for them to also advertise through those local dealers. They'll be promoting the program as well. So if you're a landscaper and you go in to have something serviced, you'll see the information there. We're also looking at printing up some little graphics that they could put on their windows saying participant of AQMD's commercial lawn and garden program, or something to alert people that this program is in place. We do have data on where the equipment was purchased over the years, so we know, and it's population based. Majority has been in LA County because we have a larger population base in LA County, but we have had participation throughout for all 4 counties. And as a matter of fact, Palm Springs has just been waiting because last year they passed city council banned gas leaf blowers in their city. So they're anxiously waiting for this program to tell their landscapers, look, you have an option here for electric. On the residential side, we have had, the public has been asking for more than just lawnmower. So right now it's exclusively lawnmowers, but they have said, how what about, edgers and trimmers? And we just received something last week where somebody had a multi-use piece of equipment that was a lawnmower, an edger, and a trimmer all built into one piece of equipment. So we're like, okay. So definitely, as the public is asking for more, we will definitely come back and see what we can do to respond. Mm-hmm. You want them? You want to know, like, by county? Okay.
Yeah, okay. You'll provide that. I have, let me check if I got this right. Dr. El Hassan, Carrie, Rafa, Mary, are you still up or not? Not. Okay, then Beto. So, go ahead, Beto, yeah.
A quick question and another recommendation or a quick comment. From a public health standpoint, I do actually write a lot of notes for my patients who work in landscaping. Blowers, gas-powered blowers are actually quite a public health nightmare because you have someone sitting with a combustible engine, inhaling those fumes that's right next to them. They're blowing around pollen and mold. It's as bad a combination as you can possibly get. And I've actually had some people actually be able to exchange out the blower they were given. They either worked for the company, for the government, because of the American Disabilities Act, because I was able to diagnose this person has asthma, and there's a commercially viable alternative to walking around with a gas engine strapped to your back. So it would be very hard for a government employer to contest something like that, and it's a very legitimate thing. So I've actually written notes to my patients. This is to confirm this patient is having respiratory issues, asthma, whatever they may have, and actually have had exchanges done because of that. The recommendation that I also have for you is for electric cars, you can get a deal between 12, it depends on the electric company, but between 12 midnight and 6 in the morning, the charging rate, the electric rate is much lower, which is an incentive. So you automatically charge your electric car between those hours and you get a much better rate. Is there any way to offer commercial businesses who are charging their lawnmowers, charging their big electric devices, an improved rate during off-peak hours as a further incentive? Because even if it's a few dollars a night, that's a lot of savings to a small business and can certainly increase the incentive. Just working with the electric company. So we have it for electric cars. Could we do it for small businesses with electric machines?
Yeah, I think the segment of the market is too small right now to consider something like that. But I mean, down the road, I mean, and again, it could be a business model or something that a company could maybe talk to Edison or their local provider about providing some kind of a discount if they have a suite of equipment or, something that they could get a discount on. It's a good point.
Great, thank you. That's interesting. We're going to be in contact with the public employee unions who represent those people. Okay. I had Carrie, I had you next, and then Rafa, and then Beta.
Just a suggestion, there's a couple of our colleagues that hopefully are on your outreach list. One is the Latina, and the other one is the Latino Business Associations that I would highly suggest that you contact. But I was wondering if you know of any studies that have been done to compare the amount of carbon-generated electricity is used versus the amount of gas saved, right? Gasoline saved, because they both pollute, right? It's like, okay, is there really a significant difference? Do you know of any studies?
I guaranteed, and for a few reasons. One is we're getting more and more of our electricity from renewable resources over time. So we're using less and less actual unsustainable fuels to generate that electricity. Secondly, the engines, these are normally uncontrolled two-stroke engines. They're horrible. They pollute, I forget the numbers. When you look at the volatile organic compound emissions, they're way more polluting than your average car, just from, and so I forget if it's several cars worth of pollution from this one little leaf blower that is uncontrolled. So yes, there is a net benefit, a big benefit from getting rid of these sources, because they're the most polluting type of engines that we even use. They're small, but they pollute a lot.
I'll make sure to send a link to Alicia that she could send to the group. The State Air Resources Board had a really nice comprehensive report in November on the small off-road engine category, and it had emissions, health impacts, a lot of details that you might find of interest. I'll make sure to send that to you.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. Rafa, we have you, and then Beta.
So, alongside of this, air pollution, there's, if there's any way to include in that, presentation, at least, side of the house, if you could encourage, everybody to pick up those leaves rather than just blowing them out in the street.
Yeah, my favorite technology, zero emission technology, is a broom.
Yeah. Just pick it up. Just because it clogs catch basins, it can further spread stuff into the neighbors' yards and into the neighbors' streets. So I would encourage the complete picture. Go ahead and utilize those electric leaf blowers and all that stuff, but also pick up the debris, throw it away in the trash, right?
Thank you.
Great suggestion. Thank you. Beto.
Yeah, I think mine's more of a comment and a thought. I know that we're looking at environmental justice communities through this outreach, and we're looking at zip codes as well.
We're going to be, everyone's eligible, but we are targeting.
Everyone in the basin is eligible. So just looking at, and when Mr. Doi mentioned on the offsets, the carbon offsets, and looking at EJ community, a lot of these small, I'm going to use the Coachella Valley and Palm Springs, Coachella as an example. Communities like Coachella Valley, there's a lot of small business owners that are Latino landscape, and they live in the EJ community. Yet the work that they're doing is in the affluent communities, where they're the ones benefiting from the air quality or reducing those emissions. So I'm just trying to get my thoughts. You know, like how would how is that let's say, so how do you see that, you know, like more data that we would need to say, you know what, this is happening here, and show them that, you know what, you also, because a lot of Latinos in the Coachella Valley, they have, you know, they have their small business, but they don't mow their lawn there. There's hardly any grass out there.
Mhm.
There's, you know, so they have to do this work in the more affluent communities. So I just want to know if there's data out there that we already have, that we can see that there's emissions, you know, any reductions and Palm Springs even. I mean, something that would be helpful, you know, for us as an organization to also go out to the EJ groups, EJ community, and tell them, you know what, you know, keep doing this, what you're doing, you're contributing, because I think that knowledge they might not have. They might just know it's an electric equipment, but they don't know what is benefiting, you know, because the education also. So
Right, and we have like, I know that through public affairs and through like the 617 outreach, there's been a lot of community-based, programming. I know through our offices, we have the sensor programs, and so there's a lot of community outreach and involvement. I know that we have the PM10 plan for the Coachella Valley, so I know there's a lot of information. I mean, any suggestions you could have to, are you talking about just letting the landscapers know about the program, or the community as a whole?
well, you know, I know you're doing the outreach, but I think we need to go beyond the outreach of just there's zero zero emission technologies, but what does that mean? What are they contributing to as
Okay,
well?
I understand what you're saying.
Because
Okay.
they might not know what they're contributing to as well.
I think there's a couple of ones. I mean, one is, of course, what Dr. El Hassan said in terms of the people who are using the equipment are probably the most impacted from it. So getting them into the non-polluting equipment will have tremendous health benefits. Not going to help with the pollen and dust, but it will certainly help with the combustion source of the fumes and emissions that they're breathing. The other is more regional. You know, the emission reductions that are happening in Beverly Hills and Pacific Palisades are the things that are turning into smog that are impacting all the people who live downwind in Ontario and San Bernardino and Riverside. So there's also a regional benefit too. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, unless everyone's living in the same urban center and the benefits are happening directly, a lot of the stuff that we're concerned about in terms of sort of the more very localized is going to only happen in those communities in which it's happening. But the more regional impacts, which is what we're really concerned about because of the volatile organic compound emissions, is the smog and the ozone, which, you know, living there, is much worse in the Inland Empire than it is anywhere else.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, did we get through everyone's comments? David, you have another comment?
I was just going to pick up on, I think the idea of what is zero emissions, and I keep thinking of how, you know, there's two different languages for everybody, and what does zero emissions mean to your average person? And I think, you know, it sums up in health ultimately. I mean, and I don't know how we're branding any of this to the community. You know, zero emissions, oh, it's Tesla. I mean, that's how I think of zero emissions, right? And that's a whole bougie thing, right? As opposed to just healthy equipment, you know, health oriented, you know, green equipment, something that's very simple that gets people, oh, you know, the lawnmower, the pollution is hurting the workers, it's hurting the neighborhood, it's hurting the seniors, it's hurting the, you know, sensitive receptors. Trying to commute the health aspect as opposed to zero emissions, we're saving the world, global, you know, that kind of thing.
Thank you. Retta, go ahead.
So are the commercial versions of the lawnmowers and leaf blowers, are those larger and longer lasting so that somebody using it could do more lawns rather than, you know, it's easy for me, I have one lawn, but for somebody who's making a business out of it, that's a concern, I think.
And no, the variety of equipment, there's walk behind mowers. They're not all riding mowers, so there's also just a standard mower that you would use as part of landscaping. But
they're larger grade. I mean, they can
they're
do several lawns,
commercial grade
yes.
lawnmowers, right?
Good.
So you'd be mowing, you know, 6, 7, 8 hours a day.
And
versus-
some have battery swap out capabilities too.
Yes, yes.
Very good.
So you can have more than one battery and keep them working. Dr. Elisan, do you have another comment, or your card just up from last time? Wow, I'm not sure we've ever had an item that had this many comments.
think so.
That's just amazing. And so many, in fact, I think I'll suggest we take 5 minutes, come back at 1:30 and do our last substantive item, which is the smartphone air quality applications update. Ron, thank you for being patient. The other thing too is I noticed that on our agenda, we normally have a member updates specific item. We got to remember to put that back on there. In part my fault because I reviewed the agenda but missed it. But we can, I believe, if council agrees, talk about member updates under other business under item number 7. So please think about what you have for us, and I don't want to miss that. It's an important part of doing this advisory group. So let's take a 5-minute break, come back in 5 minutes and do agenda item number 6. Unless there's public comments on 5. I always have to ask. Come on, Nicole. Mark? Yeah, what's your favorite zero emission lawn and garden technology? Rake and broom. Okay. Okay, if we can get people to return to their seats. This one, you might all have to get your cell phones out for. To download the latest and greatest in terms of applications. We're on agenda item number 6, the smartphone air quality applications update, and Ron's going to lead us through that. So take it away.
Good afternoon, Ron Moskowitz, Chief Information Officer for the district. I'm in charge of all the IT, and this last year I evaluated our old app that we developed many years ago and decided that we needed to completely create a brand new app. So I completely redesigned it, made it user-friendly, and we're really excited about it. It's a way for the public to really connect with the district at their fingertips. And the important thing about this is that the app provides so much information that we feel that doctors and their patients and schools and the students should look at the app before they're making their decisions on the events that they're going to do for the day to see what the air quality is. So I'm actually going to show you the app right off of my phone. And before I do that, everyone should have a flyer that we passed out. If you have an iPhone, I'm encouraging you to download the app right now. If you have an Android, we'll have that version out in just a few months. But if you have an iPhone, the easy way to do it is just point your camera app at this little QR code, and it'll automatically pop up on your screen, and you just press it, and you can start to download that way. Okay, so let me show you the app. So when you get into the app, this is the landing page, and on this landing page, it's the first place is the places. It'll tell you, where you are because it knows from your location services. So it shows that we're in Diamond Bar, and you'll see that a few things on here. Number one, you'll see a big circle, and in the middle of that circle is a number, and that's the AQI, and that's really what we're trying to do here. The very basics of this app, but this app has so much more. So the AQI right now is 50. And it's green, so green is good, but it's really on the border of green and yellow. So green is good, yellow not so good, orange, and so on. It gets worse and worse and worse. I didn't want to just put the AQI and then just leave the app like that. I really wanted to make it an all-in-one app. So I wanted to show weather, I wanted to show conditions, I wanted to show forecasting, just as much as we could. So I'm going to go through a lot of this right now, and if you have any questions, you can hold it to the end. That way we can be a little more efficient. Okay, so you can see that there's also a few other places on here, and what I'm doing is I'm just scrolling with my finger up and down, and I've done that because I've entered these places in. If you look at the very top, there's a plus. I'm going to click on that plus right now, and I'm just going to type in a city that I don't have on here already, and I'm just going to randomly choose one, Fountain Valley, and it comes up. And it'll actually come up with any city within the district boundaries. So the next one it says you want to get alerts for Fountain Valley, and I'll say yes, and I'll show you in a minute just where we configure those alerts. So once I do that, it's looking for Fountain Valley's information, and it's going to be putting it on my phone. And then now it's part of my list. If I scroll, I will see Fountain Valley there at the bottom. And so what you see is, again, you'll see everything that I discussed, which is the AQI. You also see what today's AQI is going to be, and then forecasting for tomorrow. In the middle, you'll see a 62 degrees, and that little symbol is a haze symbol. And you may have already noticed that I've put some animation in this app. So whatever the weather is, it will show you, like in Malibu, it's a little bit cloudy. So it's not just a picture, it's actually moving clouds. Yes, we do. It's not raining right now, but the rain actually the last few days, it's a really cool animation. So it's actually rain on a windowsill. So it's not just showing rain, it shows drops and stuff like that. So we're really excited about this. Okay, so now that we've looked at the places, I'm just going to hop over to the other side, which is the settings, because when you actually set up the app from the first time, it actually asks you to set up stuff. So I'm clicking on settings, and it shows, do you want to enable location services? Yes, you do, because wherever you are, you want it to show you, what the AQI is. And then enable notifications. You also want to do this too, because it's going to show you, if if the AQI actually reaches a certain threshold, which you set, then it'll say, hey, the AQI where you're at, or where in the city that you're monitoring, is at a hazardous level or whatever level you set it at. So in addition to that, we have health alerts. So we are going to be sending out, certain health alerts that, the district does on our website and through email, but it'll also get it on this app. So now I'm going to look at air preferences, and this is where you set your levels. So again, green is good. Yellow is moderate. Orange is unhealthy for sensitive groups, and I have that because I have a little bit of asthma. So so I click on that. So any of the cities that I have set up, if any of those hit orange, I will get an alert because I set all my cities for alerts. So it'll just pop up on the screen. And I just want to say we don't just have it for the iPhone, but we also have it for the iPad and also the Apple Watch. So all three devices will be you'll be getting alerts. So I set it there because I want to kind of stop it there. I wouldn't put it just on hazardous, because if we're at hazardous, it means it's pretty bad, and you should have known that ahead of time. And then and then at the bottom you'll see that the cities that you've set up, you can actually say, okay, well, you know what, I don't go to Palmdale very often, so I really don't want alerts on Palmdale. So I just turned off my alerts on Palmdale. Okay. So then I'm just going to go back, and then I'm going to go back to the places just so that you know where we're at. And then again, just so that you're familiar, if you click on the 50 where the AQI is, it'll actually tell you what that means. So I got 50, it says good, okay, and then I'm scrolling down, and it shows me a little map there, but I click on more details, if you see that right there. And in the more details, it says, well, what makes up that 50? I mean, I want some information on the pollutants. So here we go. So the big pollutant here is it's PM 2.5, and followed by PM 10, and then O3, NO2, and CO. And it actually shows the AQI value for each one that's making up what our monitors are reporting in. And if you scroll a little bit over, you can see more information about this. So for instance, I don't know what PM means. Well, PM is fine particulate matter. And then and that's PM 2.5, and PM 10 is particulate matter. O3, it's ozone, and then so on and so forth. So, and this will change. It may not be PM 2.5 that's at the top. It might be ozone or nitrogen dioxide. So it just depends on what the conditions are. And so that gives you more detail about what it actually means, what the AQI means. Now, if you look at the bottom, the next icon is map, and this is really neat. So on map, it shows you a map, and it gives you, I'm just going to scroll back a little bit so you can see the district's boundaries here, and it'll show you where all our stations are, and then where all the colors are. So like a macro view of the AQI for the entire district. And so then on top of that, if you look at the top, it says we're looking at the air quality, but I set the app for a certain fuel efficient vehicle. I'm just going to show you that real quick because I forgot to show you. On alternative fuels, I set my car as, because I don't have an electric car, but I set it as electric. So if you have an electric car, you can set that. If you have a hydrogen car, you can set that. And what's neat about that is that if I go back to the map, it'll actually, if I click on fuel, it'll show me all the fueling stations around me for electric. Now, if I change that to hydrogen or any of the other ones, those will pop up. So I'm in the middle in the blue, and all the black are the different areas. Now, if I just click, I'm just putting my finger on this one right here, where it says it's an office building on Valley Boulevard. It popped up in the bottom. It shows me the address, and if you notice, there's an arrow there. So if I click on that arrow, it's actually going to give me directions to that location. So again, we envisioned an all-in-one app. It's not just to give you the AQI, but if you got a fuel-efficient vehicle, you want to know where to fuel up. It shows you where to go and gives you directions to do that as well. So then you can route your directions there from where you're at, and then go from there. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the app here, and I'm going to show you right on the other side of this big button is SCAQMD, and that is actually our it actually connects to our website, and it shows three things. One is the announcements, which is in the middle, which is pulling it right off our website. We also have, if there's any alerts, they'll be listed here. And then on top of that, and this takes just a little bit of time because we have to pull the data and because it's a lot, is our events. So for instance, if there's a meeting that is going on from the district, it'll actually show you, just like it would on our website, the events itself. So if you notice today, we had the Mobile Source Committee, which was canceled, sorry, Stationary Source Committee, and so on. And then here we are, Environmental Justice Group. And if you click on, for instance, on the Technology Committee, it'll show you more information about it. And then there's a call-in webinar and call-in page and all that stuff. So this is again, we want to give you as much information as we can through this app, and we're going to be enhancing it really in the future to add more options as well. And then the last thing I just wanted to show you is that right in the middle, there's a big button here that says 1-800-CUT-SMOG, and that's our number that you call. And I'm going to press it right now. So if you want to report an air quality complaint or an equipment breakdown or a smoking vehicle, that's the number you want to call. But what's really neat here is that you press that button and then you press call, and then it's going to call it for you. So you just go ahead and call, and I'll just put this here so you can, oops, sorry. You didn't see that. Of course. Okay, so that went ahead and called our 1-800-CUT-SMOG, and I just hung up on them. It's okay. We know the people that work here. So that's a really easy way. And when I show this to my friends, they're so excited. They said, "Well," because they see a lot of vehicles on the road that they want to report, and it's an easy way to do it. And they asked me, and I'm going to just mention it here because a lot of people have asked it. Well, can I take a picture of it and report the picture? And we say, we really don't want you using your phone for cameras while you're driving. Making a phone call and using your Bluetooth is safe, but doing anything else is not. So, I just in case anybody had that question, because that question comes up a lot. So, so that's our app. And again, we're just super excited about it. We've gotten 5-star reviews on the Apple Store. Our Android version is coming out at the end of April. And I can't stress enough how much we want you to download the app, tell your family, your friends, your patients, anyone you know about it. This is something that we believe it will really connect you to the district and the air quality around you. Any questions?
Up first, Rafa or Professor Beeson? Rafa, go ahead.
I have a question. So, what's it cost?
It's free.
No, it's a loaded question. So, what kind of information is it costing us? So, I mean, are you guys collecting information, selling our information?
Oh yeah, we're collecting all your contact lists and your bank accounts.
But I'm being serious. I mean,
So-
is the information sold? What are you guys doing with the information?
We don't collect your information, and we don't sell your information. The only information that we get is how many people download, and things like that. But that's internal statistics. Mm-hmm.
Feel free to download it now.
Yes.
Did everyone download? It was so simple.
Yeah, I was on the graph there.
Fantastic.
When you have green there for a particular city, but when you downloaded and looked at that particular city for the different pollutants, the PM 2.5, NO2, ozone, so forth, they were all green. What if there's a mixture, like one of them is yellow and the other ones are green and maybe one's orange? What actually shows up on the main?
So it sorts it by the worst.
Okay,
right?
so there was a
If
green
there's
and
one
a
yellow,
and an
it'll be
orange.
yellow. If
It will
there's
actually
one
show orange if one of them is the highest. So it shows the highest one.
Right, and then
So
when you
I was wondering about the mixture.
Yeah, so when you go into it, you can see the more details, right? So, and that's a really good question because we wanted to
Yeah, so that was all green.
Right.
So
Well,
my question
they're all
is,
green, but if you notice, they're sorted by AQI value, right? So the top one is 50, but
Right.
but the bottom one is 5. So they're all within the green threshold.
Right. So if one was yellow, that main circle would have been yellow.
That's correct. So if I
That one.
went to Malibu right now, So let's go ahead and go to Malibu and click on more details. Then what should happen is the top one, it shows you that the top main pollutant
Right.
is PM 2.5
Yeah,
right
you
now in
find
Malibu.
fine fraction, yeah.
Right.
Or maybe not. Maybe
Okay, I just want to know how it actually displayed, if there was they were all green or all yellow. Or
Right, right. Yeah, obviously, there's a lot of things in the air, and we're tracking all of that, but we're looking at, hey, the values as far as the AQI, which one is the worst?
Now, will you ever expand this to air toxics to go beyond the
Don't have a lot of data.
NAQS standards?
We'd have to discuss that internally. There's probably a lot involved in that.
Because, you could deal with lead or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't
There's
have
a whole
conti-
list of the air toxics that are
Yeah, but we don't
beyond
have
the-
continuous monitoring
the
data for
criteria
those.
documents.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
at least not yet.
That's in the future sometime.
It's possibly in the
Perhaps,
future,
okay.
yeah.
David, go ahead.
So on that same monitoring piece, and I know this is probably isn't so much your area, but when the fire started out, the campfire started, and the other fires out in Thousand Oaks, my son's school's in Encino, and I was saying, okay, well, I got to check the air quality and see what's going on. And literally in the middle of the fires, it showed green, like not, Now, I'm not sure if there's vulnerability in the system, the monitoring system. Maybe it's wind.
Was it the first day?
It was the second day.
Yeah, the second day, I think the wind turned around.
And I'm wondering, just the caveats on some of this. Maybe I mean, you guys would know.
The
more.
first day was kind of shocking because everything was green
Yeah.
because the wind was blowing offshore, and you could actually see all the smoke sitting out in the ocean. And I looked at all the PM monitors, the purple air monitors, and they showed nothing. And then the next day it turned around, and I mean, you could smell it, you could breathe it, and then they were high, the PM 2.5
Right.
monitors, the purple air low cost ones. But I don't know about the
So
AQI.
I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Vasilios. Go ahead.
Yes. This app is collecting data from the regulatory grade monitors that we have in our 43 stations network. If you're looking at other applications that are reporting AQI, this AQI might be generated by devices that are not regulatory grade or are just local sensors, and there might be discrepancies between what is reported by an app that is using an AQI that the data is coming from regulatory grade instruments versus an app that is reporting AQIs that are coming from devices that are not at that level of quality.
But then we're not, I mean, because the PM is not collected continuously, how are we figuring out what those levels are? Because those are 24-hour samples, right? Or 8-hour samples or something, either one.
Maybe I can add some details. So my name is Scott Epstein. I'm the program supervisor of the Air Quality Assessment Group in planning. So the data that we use for this app and the data that we display on our website comes from continuous monitors. So in a wildfire situation, we see high PM 2.5 concentrations, and those are hourly continuous monitors. They're regulatory grade. They're we consider very accurate, especially compared to these low-cost sensors. However, they're not everywhere. So we don't have the resources to have a monitor in every city, right? So there's always a possibility in a wildfire situation that the plume of the wildfire is not hitting a monitor that may the closest monitor to your area. So that's one caveat. The other, and that's why we advise, if you see or smell smoke, take precautions regardless of what the monitors do say. So there were, my group issues the health advisories for wildfires, and we were tracking a lot of the smoke plumes. So we actually got fairly lucky in terms of air quality in like the Valley and LA area during the Woolsey fire, because most of those days the winds were blowing offshore and blowing all the smoke way offshore, and our air quality was actually surprisingly good due to those strong Santa Ana winds. So probably a combination of both of those.
It's kind of like relying on Waze or something, right? You're getting good data, but it's still not going to put you in the right place at the right
Yeah,
time all the time.
and there is a network of low-cost sensors that, I mean, we tested in our AQ spec program that were proved to be pretty accurate. You know, for any specific reading, you can't take it as gospel because it's not a federal reference or a federal approved number, but you can look at the Purple Air website, the Coalition for Clean Air website that the Purple Air website is embedded in, and you can get those data, and there are hundreds and hundreds of them throughout the basin, so you can get numbers from different communities within there. Tends to be fairly accurate, but you know, it's not, like I said, it'll give you an idea, especially with the wildfires where you had big areas, you could see where those were.
So does AQMD share their data outside of this group, or do people pull from that data for their?
Yeah, so actually all of our monitoring data is public, and actually these hourly measurements become public on the hour as well.
Okay, so if you upload it, someone else
Yeah.
can grab it from yours and
Right, and you can actually go to our website, and we have an open data portal where you can grab this data.
Yeah, and there's actually a couple of other apps. One's by AQ Air and the other's by a company called Plume. You can find those on the App Store too. But the interesting thing is that both Plume and AQ Air right now have the AQI at 25 instead of 50, and I'm not sure why.
So
I've never done this before. I never actually looked at the three at the same time.
Go ahead.
I do have both apps on my phone, so it's not exactly clear how AQI is calculated in those apps. So if you look carefully, one says US AQI, which doesn't really tell us how it's calculated. The other one will say PAQI
Yes,
for
Plume, yes.
AQI.
Whatever that is.
So the question is, how does this AQI, how do they calculate that AQI value? And of course, there is different approaches. Even the vendor, or the sensor vendor, or an app developer can take their own approach to develop these AQI values. So we know that here this is calculated using the EPA nowcast approach, especially for most of the criteria pollutants that are reported there, PM2.5, PM10, ozone. So we know the background on how this is calculated here.
So the goal would be the government standard should be the standard that people go for, but you're going to get Fox News and CNN and MSNBC on your app in terms you just believe what you want to believe. My real question to the developer.
Yes.
How much does it cost to develop such a fluid app?
Well, we have internal resources that did develop this. We did hire a vendor to help us, and we developed this within about 4 months. So we're looking at about 100,000.
Very good job.
Thank you.
Okay, Larry, you had another?
One comment, you made the comment that obviously we don't have a monitor in every city. So if you choose a city where there is no monitor, is there some sort of a triangulation or inverse distance where we would estimate this is what we think the air pollution would be if there was a monitor? Kind of a regression approach, if you will.
Yeah, so we don't regress the data at this point. We look for the closest monitor and then but
yeah, but what if the closest monitor is 50 kilometers away or something? I mean, how do you do inverse distance or?
We don't. Yeah.
Okay.
So fortunately, there's not a situation where they're 50 kilometers away, but we do look for the closest monitor of that particular pollutant, right? So the ozone network, there's a lot more ozone monitors than there are PM2.5 monitors. So it's more likely that there'll be an ozone monitor that's much closer to your
Right,
location.
but then not only distance, but are you upwind or downwind? You could be fairly close, but if you're upwind, then distance isn't as important. If you're downwind from one that's further away, might be more relevant to estimating the air pollution in a particular city than if you're downwind but farther away. So I mean, there's distance, and upwind, downwind is just as important as distance from the most nearest monitoring station.
Yep, I agree completely. I think the current framework, like I said, is it just looks for the closest monitor, but we have been talking a lot internally about maybe switching. Right now, if you see, there's source receptor areas, so there are these. We report for 45 different source receptor areas. That's why on the map there's kind of those small regions on there. And the air quality in that source receptor area is assumed to be uniform. But we have had some internal discussions to switching to more of a gridded system where we do, some sort of interpolation, considering some external factors. But that's a very, very big project, very big project. But, yeah.
And I don't know, Beto, if you want to talk about the Ivan network and what you guys have done, because they've, out in places where you normally wouldn't have any testing, they have done a fantastic job of getting a grant and working with others to put in a network.
Yeah, so our network is Ivan Air. It's community-based, low-cost sensors. And to your question about, how do you get the similar as a AQI from a South Coast or regulatory monitor, one thing our project did was that we validated and calibrated against federal reference monitor. Even though they're low-cost monitors, we were able to do that kind of, we did the calibration validation against these monitors because we wanted to make sure that the data, although it will never be comparable to federal grade monitor, we did come up with an accuracy about 90%. And that for a community is good enough because, now the EPA, like you mentioned, you can place these monitors in places that currently there's no data. And how do you use that information to make better informed decisions throughout the day, keep kids indoors or, just different behavior changes. So I just wanted to add that.
And what about the guidebook too? Why don't you mention
and
that?
the guidebook, I can share that. So we created a community air monitoring guidebook from the steps of how to engage the community, how to do a hazard mapping activity, the science behind it, the whole network, how it operates, and the maintenance plan. And I think even at the end, it shows, it has towards the end of the book, we even added what it would take for an organization to run a network like this. It's pretty much a whole proposal put together, kind of just going, and you can get a lot of language from there, put it together.
And I think if staff could probably find it, but maybe you could send the link because you can just download it. It's a really great report.
Yeah, and we'll have more discussions. I think I can talk more about it at the next meeting about our network. I can also, some other time do a presentation on it, and all these low cost technologies are important because they're all helping us, be better informed, make different changes, and I think with 617 as well, we'll be able to add some of these monitors where they're missing and be able to for AQMD to use that. And I had a question for you. Are you, with community sensors, will you be adding a component to this?
So
they say these are low cost and this.
Well, I think what's going to happen with the district is over time we're going to be adding more sensors in the district, and so our data is going to get better and better over time and cover more granular areas. So I'm the IT guy, so I depend on their stuff, but I know that that's the direction that we're heading. And
But we're on a path right now for the fence line refinery monitoring plans are going to come into place, so that data will be available. And certainly, some of the different places where we do have low-cost sensors deployed, that information is available too. But all of that comes with a big asterisk about what's legitimate for enforcement purposes and for national ambient air quality standard compliance purposes and all of that. But when we have a program at the Torrance refinery where we're going to deploy sensors into the community, so we're going to be collecting quite a bit of data.
And we'll be updating the app, as appropriate. So, and we're excited to do that.
Yeah, and I'm also kind of excited about the possibility that the Torrance refinery community monitoring might provide us a sort of a platform that others could provide data to and maybe use it in some way, shape, or form because others are collecting data too. And with all the due caveats about what we control and don't control about the information. Professor Hernandez.
I have a dumb question. I also had the idea of being able to upload a picture of a diesel truck with the license plate, and I can understand the safety concerns there, but how do you capture that information? Most drivers are single drivers in their car.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
the same. Look, it's the same thing. You can. I'm not saying. I'm not promoting it. I'm just saying hypothetically, you can still take a picture with your phone
Right.
and save that for documentation purposes. We just didn't want, from a liability perspective, didn't want to incorporate it into the app.
Or I would say, if there's a non-driving passenger
Right.
in the car
Yeah.
that could
Yeah.
capture the license plate
Yeah.
in some method or
Well,
other.
yeah,
Yeah,
and,
well, we would-
and you want the DOT number more than you want the license plate. A lot of times they just
Is
have.
that right?
Yes, they're,
Okay, so
they're
this is,
towing
again,
a,
information I did not know. What information do I convey to report these?
So when you do call the 1-800-CUT-SMOG number, you will get a person, and then they'll prompt you and ask you questions, and then
And then I'll say, I don't know, they turned off the road.
but it'll be better informed for next time,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So, good.
well, any other questions, comments? Sure.
If
Ron,
I
go
can
ahead.
just say one more thing. Number one, please tell again, if you like the app, tell your friends and family, install it, use it, and give us some more feedback. And number two, on the Apple App Store, there's a review section. We always appreciate positive reviews.
And we
It
don't
helps other
appreciate
peop-
bad reviews. but
Yeah. Please review it how you feel necessary, but it does help other people be more aware that there is an app out there for the district. Thank you.
Right. Beto, did you have something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a quick comment. So last week there was an advisory on wood stove burning in the Ontario, the Inland Empire area. And I know that, South Coast sends a media advisory out. And sometimes, looking at the Press Enterprise, for example, and their messaging out there that they put out for communities is good, avoid wood stove burning. But then that's it, and then I saw the thread. It was on social media, on Facebook page. Everybody, well, why are they coming after us? We're trying to stay warm. But I would just, this is something that I thought about. Even though just putting the wood stove burning to eliminate or reduce it, or no wood stove burning that day, then also add a little bit more information. What are the other pollutants that contribute? Because people in that thread were like, why do they go after the little guy? Why don't they go after that diesel truck? Why don't they go after that facility? Why is it that they're targeting the smallest person out there? The homeowner, right? Why are you targeting them? Because it's easier to go after a homeowner than to go after an industry. So that's just a thought. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. So there's, obviously a lot of programs to go after the trucks and to the
we know that.
facilities and everything. The restrictions on fireplace and wood stoves and all of that, that's a whole huge issue. But actually there is an exemption for heat for people who use it as their sole source of heat. So there actually is an exemption that's built into the rule language that exempts that if that's what it's being used for. But and I mean, it was a lot of years ago that this issue came up as a regulatory matter before the governing board. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, really? We're going into people's houses, and we're telling people they can't actually build houses with wood fireplaces anymore. And then I looked at the data, and it was frightening how much particulate matter is coming. I mean, directly, because it's uncontrolled, it goes right out the chimney. And so it's really a huge source. Yeah. And it's actually the largest source of direct PM emissions in the basin. There are other indirect ways that PM's formed that account for a lot of it too. But it's a big source of emissions, which is why we have this No Burn Day program, and it's actually really key to us getting into attainment of these national ambient air quality standards for PM. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. But rest assured, for the low-income people, for people who are way up in the mountains, and for people who are using it for heating purposes, then there is an exemption built into the regulation. No one's going to get a ticket and notice of violation for that.
And I know that. I'm just trying to figure out what other message we can add to that too.
Yeah.
Because people don't know the whole thing. They just know wood stove. Okay, what does that really mean? And I see it even in the Pacific Northwest. People are used to burning. They have trees, but now they're realizing, with all the wildfires, they're paying attention. They're saying, okay, the wildfires, air quality. I have a chimney in my home. Now they're making the connection. Opposed 5 years back, maybe they weren't making that connection.
Yeah.
But now with climate, that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, as we can tell just by the conversation about the lawn and garden equipment and the conversation about this issue, I mean, it gets complicated really quickly, and that's why it's good to at least have these conversations and people become more educated about it. But yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of having a sensor program is that people start asking these questions, and then you get into the the complicated issues of what's the difference between particulate matter and ozone? What do you use to generate your numbers for an AQI? What does it actually mean? And there are complicated issues and tough going, but thanks, Berto. We will continue to try to educate people about those things. I appreciate your support in doing so too. Okay, so any other questions or comments on item 6? Members of the public? Okay, so other matters, this can include member updates under item 7. Anyone have anything for us? Professor Hernandez?
Yes, we do have 2 just announcements. Fabian?
Yes, announcement number 1, pursuant to state law, SCAQMD governing board policy requires members of bodies subject to the Brown Act to receive 2 hours of training in ethics principles and laws every 2 years or within 1 year of appointment. You should have received an email from Cindy Bastillos yesterday with the information to complete the training. If you didn't have any, if you have any questions or did not receive the email, please see Alicia after the meeting or contact her directly. And then number 2, please fill out the member information sheet found at each seat. This ensures that we're able to have the most current contact information on you.
Okay.
And that's it.
Professor?
Just an update, Cal State LA is working closely with Alicia and the EJ group to coordinate another environmental justice tour for Cal State LA geoscience students. Unfortunately, last term, the day we were going to do the tour was the only day it rained in October. So we had to cancel. But the nice thing about this tour is that the boat tour accommodates a lot of people. So while the bus itself transports a limited number of students from Cal State to the Long Beach Harbor, once you're at the harbor, the boat can actually accommodate a lot more. So we can include EJ members or other interested parties, and so open it up a little bit more. So we're hoping in March, one of the 2 weekends in March, that we'll have that coordinated.
Why don't we make sure that staff lets people know? Okay, Danny?
Yeah, we've had the issue with the cement plant in Colton. We've had several meetings with the community over there that have been very fruitful. And we had talked to the outgoing mayor. He wanted to work with us, but now he's gone. We have a new mayor, and he's open to working with us because one of the things I want to see if we can get some of the diesel truck owners in South Colton to take advantage of the Carl Moyer program. So we're working on that.
Carl Moyer, and then there's also going to be Volkswagen settlement money too, and perhaps some Fiat Chrysler money, but we don't know about that yet. But yeah, absolutely. So there's more than just one program to help reduce truck emissions, and we will certainly try to make sure that that happens. That's great. Okay, any other updates? Anyone? All right, members of the public, any comments on item 7, other business? How about public comment period? Last chance. Come on, folks. Okay. All right, we're going to adjourn till Friday, April 26th. And thank you again for coming out. And I really appreciate all the participation today. So see you in April.